Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Welcome, one and all, to the Doug Rice Show. I am Doug Rice, back from a hiatus that was lengthy, required, needed, and of necessity. I am back at a very tumultuous time, at a very energetic time, at a time when at least some discussion must be had about what we are witnessing. I've had a pretty good break, gotten a lot done, have done a lot, am doing a lot. I welcome one and all of you to this live, and I hope that you are able to share, like, subscribe. I am Doug Rice. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. And first, foremost, more than anything, please let me know if you can hear me. If you can hear me, just give me a quick one in the chat. I am looking at the chat. Like, subscribe, share. I should be on Facebook. I should be on YouTube. I should be on my Facebook Black American page. And we're going to be covering some topics today. We're going to be going over a few things. We're going to be seeing which way the road swings. Now, you guys know that I am a writer. That is what I profess. That is what I do best. I write. And I write what I have coined Negro prose. Negroprose. A form of writing that can be akin to poetry, at least in my limited thinking. And it's developed over time, over years, that I've stylized my way of expressing myself on the page. And second to that, I try to do a live now and again. And now, today, I have been brought out of my semi-rest, semi-retirement, semi-break. I will tell you exactly all that has transpired and why it has taken me so long to get back in the saddle. I've had a lot happen, a lot of progress, if you will, a lot of things that have gone on. And one of the things is that I moved. I had to move into a new domicile, a new home, a new place to live. It took me well over a year and a half to recover from the incidents that resulted in my not having a home. And now I have remedied that situation. I have taken the steps needed to move and have moved and had to do it at nearly 60 years old, both myself and my wife, Lena. And it was quite a chore. It was wow. It was something else, folks. Good day to you, wind talker. Good day to you, remnant of Judah. Good day to you, Calvin Andrus. I've seen you in a few lives here and again. Good day to Diane Lawe. I'm hoping I'm probably pronouncing that correctly. I see a lot of you in the lives and shows and programs of the fellow Hebrews that I monitor and host. I think no, that's not the word. You moderate. Yes, moderate. I moderate for quite a few of the folks that all of us listen to. And if I can give a shout out to Yakoba and his brother Teo, the anchors of my spiritual awakening, and as well Dante Fortson, the three ministers I have coined. If you are looking for the kind of spiritual nourishment you need that references the uh, biblical tracks that all of us need to pay strict attention to, historical, factual. I always direct those of you that tune in to me to listen to those individuals first. I am simply a commentator. I am simply a content creator, and that is the length and breadth of my contribution to the congregation of Zion. But today, now that I have settled in, have moved into a home and gotten set back up into an office and have set myself back into the ability to bring you some quality lives, I felt today to be the best day to dive back into the water because, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, the water is warm. Isn't it warm? My God! Is it not warm? And why, pray tell, is the water warm today as we delve into the topic of why I talk about white people? Well, I will tell you why I talk about white people because there's the reason I talk about white people. This is a prime example of why I talk about white people. You want to know why I talk about white people? You're looking at it. Charlie Kirk, the prime example of why Doug Rice talks about white people. Why do I talk about white people? Well, his passing has triggered the response from white people that give you the reason why I talk about them. And today is the best way to get into it because I have been at the mental throats of these white folks, and all I've been saying is no joke. I have been on them. Been on them on Twitter, been on them on Facebook, been on them on TikTok. I've been on them everywhere they show their lily white asses. I am there. I'm there to clarify, to correct, to cajole, to create any kind of consternation that they may need, because that is how I choose to proceed. Charlie Kirk is the reason today of the primary focus of why I talk about white folks. But we're going to go over this point by point. I'm going to give you the reasons why I talk about white people. Because I know see me post, you see me in the moderating position. I have no proclivity toward slowing down or censoring myself. These are creatures that need to be talked about. I kid you not. And these days, as they show their monkey asses to the masses, it's about time I take these fools to classes. You know what I mean? Now, first things first, let's talk about the current event. Let's talk about Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was murdered horribly, publicly. Assassinated is a stretch. I think I lean in D.L. Hughley's arena when I say assassination implies a political event or a political target. Charlie Kirk was not a political target. Charlie Kirk was an egotistical, loud-mouthed white supremacist, maniacal maniac that encouraged white supremacy, talked about black people disparagingly. I mean, and he literally brought about the circumstances that contributed to his demise, as tragic as it was right before his children's eyes. Absolutely. I will not take pleasure in a man's murder. That is not who I am. That's not who we are. We are Negroes. But I will not mourn the passing of a clearly evil individual that meant Negroes absolutely no good at any time, for any reason, any place. And I don't give a damn about Candace Owens. She could commiserate with the enemy as long as she sees fit. I don't care about that. Charlie Kirk was a clearly racist, misogynistic individual. He made statements that were shocking. He was an entertainer. He was a commentator. He was a content creator. But he was no part of any kind of movement except a bowel movement. And I will not say that he got what he deserved, because he did not deserve anything. He didn't deserve anything. There was nothing that he did of any import. And I'm certain some of you have seen me write it. He was not a leader of men. He was just a guy with a show and a platform that he made go, and he enriched himself in the process. And now they are trying to lionize and canonize this creature, this creep, this idiot, this individual. And it's sickening, but it also exposes what white people truly are when it comes to one of theirs murdered at the hands of one of theirs. And we'll talk about the assassin, if you will, the 22-year-old assassin that they've put in the front of this, saying and claiming that he somehow made a shot at over 200 yards into the jugular of a man sitting down when so much evidence points to the contrary. I think you've read and heard my assertion that perhaps there was too much focus on a particular Epstein birthday book that caught the attention of so many in this country. And it's my opinion that the administration currently driving this country toward the precipice of evil, a precipice of being just disbanded, saw that book as a threat. And I believe perhaps mechanized this whole incident to take focus from those events. That is just something that I put out there. And if for those of you that follow me on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, on all of these social media platforms, that is where I reside. That is where I do my writing. I also have a Substack account. And I write what you hear me talk about on these lives. And I've talked about that particular topic. I've talked about the Trump administration wanting to somehow dissuade the public from looking deeply into his proclivities, into his being what people clearly see as a pedophile and child rapist. I mean, it's out there now. It's plain. And it's those photos, those drawings that I think drove him insane. You know, if you saw the drawings of some of the birthday books, you'd know why he wanted everybody to not look. And the only way his world could get shook from that was perhaps to take out someone like Charlie Kirk to get the distraction in order. But I don't want to digress. I'm here to talk about why I talk about white people, when I talk about them, and why I talk about them, and why they are so much a topic of discussion for all of us. Well, this incident has proven beyond doubt why the need to talk about these creatures may be in order. You know, if you looked at the interview with D.L. Hughley, D.L. Hughley said that Charlie Kirk was a horrible human being. That's what he said. I did not say that. I'm simply quoting it. Charlie Kirk was a horrible human being. And horrible human beings follow Charlie Kirk. Individuals who are racist in nature, who are white supremacists, who have poor opinions about people of color, who don't like black people. I'm not talking about LGBTQ. These are not our problems. I'm not talking about the politics of left or right. These are not our problems. I'm not talking about Democrats or Republicans. These are not our problems. But where Charlie Kirk was most noteworthy, in his opinion, was that of black people, black women. And the things that he said about George Floyd really kind of it irritated me. Things that he talked about when he talked about George Floyd. He said that George Floyd was a scumbag. And then juxtaposed to his death being in front of his children, so many want us to have such sympathy for the circumstance surrounding his assassination in the face of this kind of attitude toward black people. You would actually think that perhaps our disdain and dislike of Charlie Kirk would be well warranted. Charlie Kirk was not a friend of black people. Black people should not be a friend to people like Charlie Kirk. That is just the way it is. And one of the things that most folks might need to hear is that he was a college dropout. He didn't know how to interpret statistics, and he was funded by wealthy racists. And when I say funded, I mean to the tune of his amassed wealth of $12 million from him having nothing, no job, no earnings potential. All he had was his mouth, and he turned that into $12 million, and then it all went south. So, covering these current events and what they are doing to the mental of white people all over the world, we have the death of Charlie Kirk. And just to further the point, the last thing that he talked about was how gang violence contributed to mass shootings. We all know that mass shootings are a white pastime. Gang violence is something completely different. That's just a fact. But for the record, the last statement Charlie Kirk made was against black people in regarding gang violence in comparison to mass shooting. And as I posted, he was a racist, white nationalist piece of garbage to the end. He hated black people. He blamed them for the violence of this country, and he was murdered by a white man. And that is what I call irony. And when we look at the white man who murdered him, when we see this young man, he confessed to the horrific shooting when his dad asked if he pulled the trigger, but originally refused to turn himself into law enforcement, according to sources. This was their greatest fear. This is what set them on edge because they were so ready to go to war with everybody who isn't a white person. When they found that it was a white person that did him in, they all wanted thoughts and prayers. When I talk about white people, these are the people that I'm talking about. When I discussed what white people are doing, when you hear me make these kinds of assertions, these are the assertions about the people I make. Keep in mind that Charlie Kirk openly called for public executions. That's what he called for, public executions. And I asked what kind of vile, sadistic, murderous people are you that worship this kind of person? Stone aged Neanderthal cave dwellers, as I call them. You're shocked with your inability to have empathy for others. You're just creatures. Yes, I talk about white folks. But as we go down the questions regarding the topics I keep bringing up regarding white people, I'm going to answer those questions point by point. I'm going to talk about why I talk about white people and when I talk about them. And the first thing, let me address who am I talking about? When you hear me talk about white folks, what am I talking about? Who am I talking about? Who are we talking about? We're talking about white people who identify as white people. We're not talking about the people that associate per se with anyone other than white people. When I talk about white people, I talk about white supremacy. I'm talking about the brand that is backed by so many in this land that call towards white only country, white only society, a white only civilization. When I talk about white people, I talk about white people that talk disparagingly against us. I'm not talking about the typical individual white person that you see on the street. I'm talking about the collective white people, the ones you don't meet. I'm talking about the attitude, the essence. I'm talking about the gravitas that they pull with them as they move deftly through the world. I'm talking about something nearly intangible when I speak about white people. Now, who am I not talking about? I'm not talking about those that pay no attention to what I'm saying. I'm talking about those that don't get triggered by the words that come out of my mouth. I'm talking about those that take really no association with what is going on, the undercurrent of whiteness that prevails over this country. Those that are simply existing, doing nothing one way or another, just as dangerous and effective in their ineffecting ways. But those are not the people I'm talking about these days. So I'm not talking about white folks that interact with Negroes who don't show us the side of them they hide. I'm not talking about those individuals. They're not activated. I'm talking about folks like Charlie Kirk that support Charlie Kirk, that chime in with Charlie Kirk regarding the beliefs that they hold. Those are the white people I'm talking about, if truth be told. This isn't rocket science, folks. This isn't a complicated issue, and we're not the bad guys. Let me explain that. You've seen me post it, and I've posted it over and over again. And again, I do thank you for tuning into the Doug Rice Show. I am Doug Rice, and I'll trying to get back in the saddle of doing some lives as I write between lives. Hopefully, you take it all in. Hopefully, but what I'm saying when I talk about white folks, when you hear me say the things that I say, when you read the opinions I have of these individuals, they're the bad guys. And any of them that take offense to me saying they're the bad guys are the people that I'm talking about. When I talk about white people and they don't take kindly to the comments and factoids I may bring out regarding their history and what they do, their proclivities toward all the things they've done historically. This is the response that I look for in being defensive and trying to somehow white splain away the facts that we see them clearly. So when I talk about white folks, I'm talking about the people, the progeny, the folks that have historically brought about rape, murder, plague, replacement, confiscation, theft, enslavement, and the folks that gloss over those activities of their ancestors and kin and try to convince themselves that they have no sin. I'm not talking about those that openly admit the wrongs that have done and all their shit. I'm talking about those that try to defend against the obvious history that we can all of us take common knowledge of, all of us can relate to. This isn't rocket science, folks. We're talking about white folks. Now, what am I saying about them other than the truth? I've said this before. You've seen me post it. These are not good people. I'm going to say it again. These typically white folks are not good people. They're not decent people. They lie, they steal. They're very dishonest in their dealings. All that they've gotten through ill-gotten means. And some work, some I'm sure work hard. I'm sure they do. But under the system that is slanted toward and for their success, and they'll deny that as a fact. Very few will confess that this entire system set up by white people for white people is favoring their ability to progress. So when I talk about white people, that's who I'm talking about. These are what the things that I'm saying regarding them. Also, the ones that get defensive regarding the comments that I make, the ones that want to go back and forth with me and try to try to reason in their white way all that they want to say. And my rejection of their explanation brings constant consternation. They do not like it when we don't accept their explanation. They do not like it. They'll try all day and all night to convince us that they are right. Those are the white folks I'm talking about. And where are they? Where are the white people that I keep referring to? Well, they're not the common white folks you see on the side of the road that might be begging for money. They're not the white folks that you might look face to face with. These white folks are out of sight and out of our reach. There are communities, entire systems that hold at bay the white folks I'm talking about. Even folks who identify as white folks don't know that they exist and know where they reside. Now, you're talking about a system within a system. We're talking about a buffer of whiteness that keeps the white people that I refer to away from us, because between us and them stands white people that are unaware that they're even there. And these are the people that support people like Charlie Kirk, people like Nick Fuentes, people like other right wing white nationalists that want a whites only country, that feel they deserve this country more than any other people who are in this country, that help build this country, that assist in keeping the country going. They would rather the country struggle into obscurity before sharing. D.L. Hughley said it best. They don't want to share. They don't want to share the country they stole and enslaved us and forced us to build. They don't want brown skinned people doing anything that benefits them. They only want the rewards of what their forefathers murdered, killed, raped, genocided, stole, lied, poisoned. The list goes on and on. Again, the white folks I'm talking about, they're not good people. And what's more importantly, the white people interact with the white people I'm talking about. You're not going to just find them in common ground. You're not going to find them accessible. These are individuals that are elites. They're breathing rarefied air and they are pulling the strings from way up there. Those are the white people I'm talking about. Where did they come from? That is that is an interesting question. Lately, I'm hoping you've seen me post a few things regarding melanin, regarding how all of this may have happened, the mutation that gave us white people some few thousand years ago, the creatures that rose from the Caucasus Mountains invading the black European nobility that was in Europe well before any of them crawled from beneath the Caucasus Mountains. Where did they come from? Well, they're a very recent development. And since their development and our educating and civilizing them, they have spread throughout the planet like a virus, lightening up the entire world to meet their white ends. These are the white people I'm talking about. Oh, they exist. Where did they come from? I don't think the point we've missed. We know if you go back far enough in time and history, there'll be less and less non-colored people on the planet. And so the origins of the white people I'm talking about can be pinpointed, focused, and designated. You can literally go through history and find where they began to increase in number. You can go through the historical facts and find the wars and conquering that they accomplished in spreading themselves across the planet. These are the white people I'm talking about. And I'm not being unkind, I'm being factual. If it wasn't for the fact that we had their history in front of us, if it wasn't for the fact that the internet and the current electronic age has given us access to information they would rather keep hidden, perhaps I wouldn't even know about all that I know about, but I do, and so do you. And that's just the way it is. So, where did they come from? They came from beneath the earth, they came from caves. This is not a cruelty, this is just the truth. First, they weren't here, and now they are here. And it's less. And at that point, perhaps their purpose will have been served. When I talk about white people, this is what I'm talking about. What have they done to us? When I talk about white people, I talk about the things that they've done to us as Negroes. What have they done to us? Everything imaginable. Experimentation, enslavement, rape, murder, sex farms, burning alive, castration. I can't go on and on. I would have too much to talk about, but we'll also talk about the unfairness of an inequality of our existence within the confines of this Caucasic nightmare we're living in. The fact that so many Black people were denied the ability to further and advance their circumstances, the fact that they redlined communities and and came up with sundowner towns, the fact that they put so many of our communities underwater, the fact that they denied Black veterans from World War II the ability to take part in the GI Bill and get themselves a home so they could be a part of the middle class. The fact that they infused our Black neighborhoods intentionally with drugs and guns and weaponry to criminalize being Black. What have they done to us? The shorter answer would have to come from a different question. What haven't they done to us as a people? This is the problem. And these are the kinds of facts they want hidden from history. What haven't they done to us? Well, Donald Trump is doing everything he can to remove any contribution of Blackness in this country out of the history books. He wants the Smithsonian to wipe everything clean. He wants schools to teach a new history, a revisionist history where slavery wasn't that bad. Slavery was horrible. And we have a few former slaves that were filmed in the 50s that waxed on about what they experienced under the master's hand. And let me just tell you, folks, it's not a pretty picture. They are horrible creatures. When I talk about white people, this is who I'm talking about. And please don't somehow try to force down my throat the fact that these were ancestors who lived long ago and we didn't own slaves, all of these different things. Let me explain this to you. When I talk about white people, I'm talking about the white people of today that carry with them the blood of their ancestors running through their veins. They are the same people. And if you look at the response to Charlie Kirk's death, his supposed assassination, before they caught the perpetrator, they called in bombing threats to historically Black colleges and universities. The response for a right-wing white nationalist neo-Nazi piece of garbage at the hands of another white person was to call in Black colleges and threaten to bomb our children. And if any of you have read anything that I've written, you'll know. It's still kind of interesting that they call our institutions of higher learning to hurt the Black people they claim they want more of, more education, more professionalism, less ghettoism, if you will. Why don't they call up brothers and sisters in Chicago and Philly and these other places that are ready, willing, and prepared to go toe to toe with some of these crackers. And, let's, work it out. If you're that mad, go to the brothers and sisters that might give you a run for your goddamn money and see what happens if it's so funny. But they don't do that. What an interesting response. When the worst of them is murdered, they threaten the best of us. These are the white people I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about some phantom. This isn't an imagination in my mind. I am well aware of their white kind. What have we done to them? What have we done to white people? Not a damn thing. I hear about it. I hear about them to say that white people purposefully hunt after, black people purposely hunt after white people through criminal activities. I've heard white people actually say that, and that nothing could be further from the truth. White person caught in the wrong circumstance under the right circumstance, they might have a problem. That's just absolutely true. But that's under any circumstances. Black people get caught in the wrong circumstances, and you'll have a problem. But black people are not actively hunting after white people and to do them wrong. That's not true. There's no concerted effort on the part of black people to do anything to white people in this country. Had that been a circumstance, believe me, they would respond. It's a phantom, a fantasy in their own minds. They want us to be criminal toward them. They expect us to take out retribution against them. And what have we done to them? Nothing. We simply want to be left alone. We simply want to be left alone to excel and progress as any group of people would want to. And what do they do at every turn? They stamp out progress. They minimize, marginalize. They do everything they can to ensure that black people do not rise above what they feel our status should be. What have we done to them? Not a damn thing. I see. Now, here's a question. Why do they hate us? When I talk about white people, I talk about those white people that abjectly hate Negroes. Why do they hate Negroes so much? I tend to think because we represent something that they don't have: blackness. We're still here despite their every move to try to remove us from the equation, and yet we still remain, we still excel, we still rise, we still exist. I believe that is a reason they hate us, that our very presence is an insult to their want and need for us to be gone. And yet, despite all that they've done to try to remove us, we still continue to have children, to procreate. And in the face of their diminishing and dwindling population, they seem to take that personally. Why do they hate us? Have you ever been amongst them and felt the animosity off them? I know I have. You can be in a room or in a setting where you are surrounded by whiteness and you can feel the anger, the resentment. It can grow. Your presence aggravates their countenance. They don't like the fact that you exist in their presence. And one of the things I've said pointedly is that when you hear them say go back to Africa, when you hear them say just leave if you don't like the country, let me tell you something, that doesn't work. And I'm going to tell you why. Because they cannot leave black people alone. We could leave this place tomorrow and be gone, and we'd be on their minds all day long. They'd be thinking about what we're doing out of their sight. They would find a reason to come somehow interact with us, aggravate us, and make their presence felt among us. We could go back to Africa, and I believe these people would find every reason to show their lily white asses up at our front door. Why do they hate us? It's almost a question that can't be answered. The hate is ever present. It's always there. It's almost biblical. It's in the air. When I talk about white people, I'm just trying to ask a few questions so that I can glean from it the reasons they might be on my mind. Why should we hate them? Well, why should we hate white people? Not simply because they hate us. I don't think that would fly, but I know that we are our father's children. Jacob he has loved, and Esau he has hated. And as far as I can see, white folks are somehow connected with Esau through Edom, through all of these different mediums. And the inherent hatred that they have for us is really not a contributing factor to why we may hate them, but there are reasons to hate these beings. And a few of these reasons I'm seeing. They're destructive, they're disingenuous, they lie, they're fake, they're phony, they mean Negroes no good. They don't have your best interests at heart. They don't want you to rise, excel, exceed. Any furtherance of your own circumstances seems to be a detractor from their own. Why should we hate them? I think it's well known. When we use the word hate, it's not a proactive, active activation of, you know, let's do something. There's no energy involved. It's simply a circumstance, a state of being. And that word has to be defined very carefully when we talk about hate, because it's about hating what they do, hating what they represent. Hate in itself to cause harm to them is not a Negro circumstance. It is not something that we do typically. We don't like the results of their activities against us. We hate the fact that they do everything they can to minimize, to marginalize, to confine us, to do all the things that white people do to maintain their own egotistical place in their minds. That's the hate we're talking about. Now, the reverse, their hatred of us involves action. Their hatred of us involves movement toward affect of our lives in a negative way. Their hatred of us causes them to do things to us. This is the reason I take no pity in the removal of one of them from their ranks that has shown every proclivity toward the hatred of Black people and everything that we represent. And I think it appropriate that we return that hate, but in a very specific, non-threatening and ethereal way. I don't like white people generally, because I know that if at any point in time they get the idea that I don't agree with them, that I am not for the furtherance of whiteness in my Black life, the tables will turn regarding their attitudes. They'll change in some respect. And that brings me to the next question. Will they ever change? I don't think they will. I think that Black people serve as a reminder to whiteness that our being here serves as the residual of the barbarity of their activities. I think that our presence amongst white people is an adjutant to their existence, because they always reference what they've done to us. And they've done a lot. They are cruel, barbaric, murderous individuals. At every chance they get, they try to remove our existence from existence. They've done these things. I don't have to remind you of our babies being fed to alligators. I don't have to remind you of the lynchings that occurred shortly after Reconstruction and Jim Crow. I don't have to remind you that they cut out the babies of pregnant black women to see and bet on who would die first. I don't have to remind you that they burned us alive. I don't have to remind you of Emmett Till, Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King. I don't have to remind you of these individuals. That's not my thing. But will they ever change? They've not changed. They've gotten worse. They've not. I don't believe it's in them to change. The Creator calls it a perpetual hatred, a hatred that does not go away. And again, we're a reminder to them of what they lack. White people don't look at black people unless they're looking at us out of a sense of envy. They wish that they had what we have. Whatever that thing may be, whether it be talent, the ability for sports, for singing, for entertainment, everything that we do well. All the contributory factors to science and life and existence in this country that they've stolen, coming from black people, not originating with white people. That constant reminder, I believe it serves as an agitator in their countenance. I do. When I talk about white people, this is what I talk about. Will we ever get along? I don't think we can. I think that they can't get along with each other. I don't know how they're going to get along with us. And remember, folks, I'm not talking about just any white folks. I'm talking about the collective, the conspiratorial, concise, the grouping of these individuals changes the dynamic of our existence amongst them. When it's a one-on-one situation, they act one way. But if it's more than 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, suddenly they feel that they have the liberty to maybe tell a few colorful jokes, and if more than that, suddenly and get a little alcohol in them, and the truth will be told about what they feel about black people. Will they ever change? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't. Right along with will we ever get along? I don't think we can get along. This Charlie Kirk incident has woken up in them the white nationalist fever started by Donald Trump when he came down that elevator, that escalator. These beings truly believe that their lack of melanin makes them superior to those that have melanin on this planet. The most absurd ideation I've ever heard in my life, that something they are missing makes them superior. I don't believe we can get along because, again, the light that rejects them energizes and activates us. And they see it. They see it through their aging process. They see it through their ability to withstand being out in the sun. They see what the light does to us as opposed to what it does to them. And if you dare take a photo of them or a video of them without their consent, they feel that they own the light that bounces off of them. They'll get in their feelings about why you're videotaping them. I see it every day on YouTube. Why are you taping? They get angry about light rejecting them. They don't want a record of what's going on. It almost seems that inherently they feel the rejection, and you filming the rejection of light, and it just incenses them. They go into some kind of mad fury about being recorded. I know you've seen it. What does history say? Well, we've gone over that. I don't have to relive that. History is self-evident. And there's the reason they didn't want Negroes to read. And what kind of future do they have? Well, The Birth Dearth is just one book that that shows and signifies what happens if you don't procreate, if you don't keep your population up. I've also mentioned to you the demographic study done in 2018 that showed those below the equator, and in color-filled countries are having babies at a much higher rate than those above the creator who are melanin challenged. What will eventually happen? Well, the numbers don't lie. I've seen some of these individuals complain about their diminishing population, and they somehow are resentful that it's happening to them. I point out that perhaps their time is coming to a close. Perhaps the usefulness of these pale, pathetic, sun-resistant creatures has come to an end. Perhaps they've served their purpose and can no longer pretend that they'll be here for a second golden age, as life seems to have wanted to close the book and turn the page. These are the questions that I wanted to address in regards to when I talk about white people. Why do I say so much about them? Because they do so much to be said about. These days, they're as active as any group of people can be in their feelings about the murder of one of their own and what kind of result this seed has sown. They want to go to war with the world that's not white. They want a civil war regarding whiteness, the protection of their class of people. They feel under threat in some respect. There's an energy about these beings that is threatening. And it's sensed by, I believe, most folks that are amongst them. I'm amongst them throughout the day, and I can kind of feel their nervous energy. I can understand where they might be on shaky ground, and it doesn't seem their reasoning is sound. These are the questions that I try to pose when I talk about white people and those folks that identify themselves as white. I have a few more questions and then I'll bid you good night. Most have been answered. Why do they think they're superior? When I talk about white people, I talk about the ones that claim a superiority to us. Why do they think that they're superior? Perhaps it's because they've been given the sword, and with that sword, they've conquered so much. They have killed so much. They've murdered themselves into position. And perhaps they feel that that kind of activity makes them superior to others. I don't really know what it is that makes them feel superior to others. It may be also in how we regard them. So many of us Negroes, lost in their sauce, seem to put these creatures on a pedestal. I've seen so much defense from Negroes at the demise of Charlie Kirk, who try to reframe this man's personage into something that's decent and good, and it's not. It never was. Charlie Kirk grew and reveled in being controversial, and he used race to stoke up that controversy, and he used race against black people. This is what he did. He was a racist. He was a white nationalist, and he tried to couch it and somehow cover it in the falsehood of white Christianity and the typical things that they do to try to civilize themselves. And it's maddening to watch black people defend this creature. This was not a friend to us. This was not a good person. Why do I talk about white people? Charlie Kirk is a perfect example of why I talk about them, because they need to be discussed. They need to be talked about. They need to be examined. And when you do that, when you bring them under close scrutiny, when you do the examination and you couple into it their history along with their current proclivities, you'll see that it's not a pretty picture. In the current news, And the reason that I think Charlie Kirk may have been sacrificed, we have the constant protection of pedophiles going on in this country. Donald Trump and those who hung around Jeffrey Epstein and the islands and the girls and the sexual slavery and the rape and the murder, all of these things that they're trying so hard now to hide and gloss over. When I talk about white folks, this is what I talk about. These are the contributing factors why they must be discussed, because their practices are vile, because the secrets that they keep are horrible, because what they like to do, the proclivities of these white males, is horrific. I was in the Marine Corps, and I've heard about the hotels in the Philippines where little boys are given to white men to do what they will. I've heard about the sex trafficking and the conquering of little girls and all of the things that are being done behind closed doors that they want so desperately to keep from the public, to not be uncovered and revealed. They've built a country and they've given it to the worst of them. And now the worst of them is desperate to hide the facts about what they do. When I talk about white people, when I discuss them, these are the kinds of topics and subjects that cross my mind. The truth. And I've said this on more than one occasion, the truth is an ugly thing. The truth is horrible. This country is held together by its lies, by its deceit, by its secrets. If the truth were made known commonly to the general public, it would be a matter of hours before the fabric of this civilization would unravel into chaos. Just hours. And all of these people that you look about that are supposedly civil would turn into monsters. This country is held together by its secrets. And white people possess those secrets. They keep those secrets. They are not good people. They're not decent people. Generally, they are horrible creatures. And I don't have a problem saying it openly, saying it pointedly, without any refrain, without any hesitation, because I've looked into what has created this nation. So I do I do want to say this. Not all of them are the same, but all of them have the proclivity towards sameness. Not all of them act the same, but all of them have within them the framework needed to be just as horrible as the next white person. And you're going to see over the next few months, perhaps even the next few weeks, certainly over the next few years, just how bad they can be, because they're regressing. They are regressing back into the whiteness that terrified Negroes. And according to T.I. Ministries, Brother Yacoba, Teal, soon we may have to flee from this circumstance. And we need to prepare ourselves for the worst, because the worst is coming. The worst is absolutely coming, and perhaps the death of Charlie Kirk may have been a touchstone toward turning toward that worst scenario, that worst case scenario. This isn't a joke. They're dangerous. They're murderous. They're liars. They're cheats. They're deceivers. That's what they are. Negroes, on the other hand, are simply victims of circumstance, placement through slavery, forced to learn the practices of these creatures that surround us. And so when you hear Negroes mimicking the activities of white people, I find no fault in their actions. That's right. We are victims of their circumstance. And when I talk about white people, that's exactly what I talk about. The circumstances, their circumstances. I truly hope that this live coming back into the fray of trying to do lives, hopefully every day. I hope it's I hope it's caught you in a good spirit. I hope that today, Sabbath, as you look about the news and understand the turn of the worm that seems to be ongoing, I pray that Negroes take stock in the change in attitude of this country with the death of one person. Can you imagine? One person has done this to this country. Negroes are killed every day, murdered in the most horrible of ways at the hands of each other and at the hands of white people. And they do not react like this. Boy, they had two school shootings in close succession between the murder of Charlie Kirk. And I haven't heard mention of one victim. Now, I haven't heard mention of the schools, the placement, the perpetrators, nothing. It's all about this white nationalist, white supremacist, white Nazi. And his wife has now gone in front of the podium and said that you don't know what you've started. We're going to carry on his mission. What mission did this man have except filling his pockets, going from place to place, giving talks, fomenting white resentment, white hatred against black people, talking badly about us, and gathering the troops toward whatever end he thought necessary to bring about the utopia that so many of them dream of? Meanwhile, it looks as if the US government may shut down as a result of this this activity. All of this is playing into a future that black people are not meant to be a part of. And it's important that when you hear me or anyone else talk about white people, you take seriously what we're saying, because we're not talking about this in a vacuum. This is happening out there amongst us. And we are, as Negroes in this country, in danger from these creatures every single day. Because at some point, there will be a catalyst that activates them against us overtly. Donald Trump is currently moving troops toward Memphis, Tennessee, because Chicago put up some resistance. But his whole intent is that he get his hands on Negroes. He wants to have us react in some sort of action against his placement of the army and authorities in our neighborhoods. And he wants to create an event that gives him permission to move on, to escalate. We as Negroes need to talk about white people. And when I talk about white people, I would hope that you hear what I'm saying. These are times that we must pay attention to their every move and understand that they mean us harm. Be on your guard, Negroes. Be aware of your surroundings. They are in quiet places preparing for a war against us, a war that we have no part in starting. They want so badly to satiate their murderous proclivities, their need to kill black people. They hate us. So when I talk about white people, you can obviously see why. They need to be talked about. Appreciate you coming and seeing what I'm talking about. I'm really grateful to be back in the saddle, back on lives. I hope that you may like, subscribe, and share. I hope that if I've offended anyone out there, then you need to be offended. If I spoke and it hurt your feelings, then you're exactly who I'm talking about. If any white person hears me talk about white people and they take exception to what comes out of my mouth, you're the white people I'm talking about. You're the problem. Black people are not the problem. Let me say that pointedly. Black people are not the problem in this country. The problem is white people. And that's just a fact. White on white crime goes unreported. The statistics of these creatures murdering one another, not even mentioned. But when a black person shoots another black person, suddenly stats go a flying, and all of these stats are nothing but lies. The causality of the criminality in our communities is a direct result of the placement of certain circumstances within the confines of the ghettos created by white minds. That is a fact. So when I hear about black on black crime, I think not too much of it, because we know these white folks put that in play. And let me tell you something, folks, they love it. All right, I got to go before I lose my voice. I appreciate you making my show your choice. Please, if you would, like, subscribe, and share the live. I thank you for your support. I thank you for all of you that have tuned in today. As you can see, if I talk too much, my voice tries to leave me. And I pray that you at least read some of the writings, look at my Substack account if you would. I still sling those PDFs. I do that real good. Tune in to TR Ministries for your spiritual nourishment, folks. Let me tell you something about Yakoba and Teal. Those two men are blessed, touched by the hand of God Almighty to disseminate information in a clear and concise way to the black population. And you Negroes had better look at every word, at every showing, because let me tell you, you've got to be knowing. These aren't rocks, sticks, and stones they're throwing. This is meat. Yakoba and his brother Teal have taken great pains to put together the information Negroes need to make the right choice at the right time. And so my advice, I hope you heed. And of course, I I attribute my presence to both Jacoba, Teal, and of course, Dante Fortson. I don't think there'd be a Doug Rice show without them. I know Jacoba doesn't like to hear that because I am a lightning rod. I'm a little bit more vocal than most. But uh, I recommend TR Ministries. And I don't know or look at any other group uh, on a regular basis other than those gentlemen. And so please support their effort as well, because they've got quite a story to tell. I think they are anointed by the Most High God. And I would always recommend that you look at TR Ministries on YouTube. They are decent and honorable truth telling men. All right, folks, y'all have a good Shabbat. You have a great Shabbat, in fact. And again, like, subscribe, and share. I am Doug Rice. This is the Doug Rice Show, and I am out of here. Bye bye.